give to a 10-year younger version of America?
Don't be dumb. I was so dumb. The world's not black and white. 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago I thought I knew a lot of things that I really didn't. So if there was one ayah I'd pick to give myself advice of, فَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. Above everyone who has knowledge is someone who has more. And above all of that is Allah. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how it'd be. Yeah.
What about Sheikh Omar? Same question.
Essentially, I mean, it's the same thing. SubhanAllah, not to be to have something called intellectual humility, which Brother Nu'man did a very good video on Quran Weekly. So I mean, having intellectual humility, not just focus on but focusing on your parents, because SubhanAllah, a lot of times we get excited and we think that the door of Jannah, the gate of Jannah, is with halaqat and with conventions and with these types of things, and what we end up doing is we end up neglecting the most important gates. And I think that was the biggest mistake I made, but alhamdulillah, I mean, I got to catch myself before it was too late with that.
Doctor,
so the most important thing is, you never forget that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure is with your mother. Just make sure that when you're going home, your mother is pleased with you, because what you're going to realize eventually when you get involved in Islamic work is that 20, 30 years down the line, you were neglecting the most important aspect of it, which was your parents. So I mean, just don't forget your parents. That's pretty much it.
If you had a choice to study Islamic studies in America or overseas, would you do overseas?
No.
Can you repeat your question louder?
Yeah, if I had a chance to go to study Islamic studies in America or go overseas, would I go overseas? I wouldn't. Sorry to disappoint most of you.
Why is it?
Because the brief version of this answer is that Islamic studies should be done for a purpose. And a lot of times there is no direct connection between, there's this fantasized idea of I'm going to study Islam and I'm going to be awesome. And how you're going to be awesome, no idea. But I'm going to be speaking at conventions, and that's my idea of awesomeness. Right? We have this really weird, twisted idea of what Islamic studies is supposed to be. The fundamental purpose of our life is to serve. Serve Allah as slaves, serve humanity for the sake of Allah, right? So whatever knowledge you're seeking should go towards that goal. Isn't that true? Now, just like, when you go to college and you say, what do you want to do? I want to get a job. So what's your major? Anything that gets me a job. And then people who have no idea what they want to do, they say business. Right? It's like that with Islamic studies. What do you want to study? Islam. What about it? All of it. Because what are you going to do afterwards? Everything. There's no focus. Focus on one thing. Identify. If you identified an area within the ocean of Islamic studies that you want to pursue, then go for it. And then if you don't find any avenues in this country, then go abroad. But I'm telling you, most people that go abroad end up studying things that they could have studied in Brooklyn. They could have studied in Louisiana. Right?
Yeah.
Even unlikely places like that. If you're going to go abroad, then don't come back for a while. Go become the best you can be. Don't go study for 2 years. That's a joke. I could have done that here. Whatever you studied could have been done here. If you're going to go for 10 years, 15 years, become the top of your field, become the muhaddith of America, and then come back. No, we don't need mediocrity.
And I would add on to that I think that we have an incredible amount of resources here in the United States that are not being properly tapped.
Yep.
And I think that, for example, and I'm not just saying this because he's my teacher, because even in the circle of ulama, you have someone like Dr. Salah Hassawi in this country, who when he goes to Egypt is giving khutbah to 30,000, 40,000 people, and even the scholars are trying to kiss his hand. People don't take advantage of the resources they already have over here, and I think that there's two things that come with Islamic studies. Number one, there's the academic aspect of it, which is studying in a classroom, and that's needed and that's very important. Number two is the aspect of pure tarbiyah. and finding the scholars, identifying the scholars in this country, subhanAllah. And once you learn Arabic, and I'm not doing a promo for Bayna, but seriously, once you learn Arabic, once you learn Arabic, you'll be able to tap. I mean, subhanAllah, it's incredible how you've got these scholars from Al-Azhar and these scholars from Islamic institutions sitting around in masajid, because they don't speak English, getting paid these low salaries, and that are, essentially prisoners of the masajid that could be tapped. And I would call someone, I think that the ideal person, someone that I personally respect a lot, that I think is someone that you all should seek advice from, is Dr. Abu Zayd, the one who spoke on Umar ibn al-Khattab in yesterday's session. Medical doctor, but learned Arabic, sat with the scholars, studied with Dr. Hatim al-Hajj, studied with Sheikh Rajab in Masjid Tawheed, studied with the ulama, and mashallah has been able to really combine success in this, in the secular sense with success, and he's still pursuing his knowledge. And again, it's fantasized. It's not easy. SubhanAllah, it's not a glamorous lifestyle to be a da'iyah. Being an imam is absolutely miserable. Okay, living an Islamic lifestyle and living the life of a da'iyah or life of an activist is not as glamorous as it seems. Okay, so I personally would prefer, and my parents used to always stress this with me. They said, you've got to do a degree other than Islamic studies. Fine, we let you study Islamic studies, we let you do all that, but you need another degree too. Okay, just in case, you need to have something else. And I had to get a degree in accounting, which I absolutely despise, but I actually did get a degree in accounting. Okay, and I don't work with it, but at least you have to be, you can't just say, I'm going to go study overseas and I'm going to become an imam and that's going to be all glamorous and people are going to respect me and adore me. Dealing with masjid boards in this country is the most miserable thing that you could possibly do, and it's not fantasized. So try to combine, pursuing a career in this country while tapping the resources that you have in this country and trying to strengthen those institutions, inshallah ta'ala.
How do you recommend that sisters who don't typically have as much access to male scholars get in touch with the people of wisdom? Because I know in my community, for example, there's no imam, and in a variety of communities around me, there's no imam currently. So I don't know how I can ask my daily questions to who will give me trusted feedback.
It's valid. It's a valid question. I have that problem as a male, so I can only imagine a female. No, seriously. It's not just imams that are locally accessible. A lot of times, the imams we have access to, with all due respect to our imams, a good number of them really shouldn't be doing what they're doing, and end up creating a lot of problems in communities, unfortunately. It's a controversial subject, so I'll steer clear of that for now. But there needs to be really a paradigm shift. And what I mean by that is you guys are the generation under me, under my generation. Our generation's job is basically to create institutions that are equal opportunity, and mechanisms of communication that are equal opportunity. A lot of that, the world around us is changing really, really fast. Things like sohaibweb.com is a pretty amazing thing, Things like revolutions happening from Facebook is a pretty amazing thing. So we're living in the communication revolution era. There's no reason we shouldn't take advantage of that in living in a society that takes most advantage of that in the world, right? So that would be my first thing. The second area is really, we're not at the level right now to be able to get reliable help locally. We're not at that level. Right now, our reliable resources are in certain areas, and they have to be nationalized. Until we're at the point that we can distribute really great quality stuff. Like, for example, I'll just give you a small example of that, and I want to hear more from you guys. Khatibs. Like good khutbah. When's the last time you heard one? You didn't sleep in it. It didn't have to do with something you couldn't understand, like the fiqh of selling camels, or like.
I'll shark your night.
Yeah, like really, there's a disconnect between the khatib and the people, right? And there are some communities where there's no disconnect. There's a really great, relevant discourse happening from the minbar, but that's not nationalized yet. So we need to create institutions that do that. Like our initiative in Dallas was Khatib Workshop, to just get khatibs to come and have a talk about, well, what kind of khutbahs you should be giving, what kind of khutbahs you shouldn't be giving. What should you avoid? Anyhow, that would be my response to that. So, I'll keep my answers are going to be like 70% shorter than that from now. So,
I would add on to that try to take advantage also of online institutions that allow interaction between the scholar and the student. Inshallah ta'ala, that's something that you could do that's a more practical step in that regard. Also, again, unfortunately, our masajid have not created an atmosphere where sisters really can come learn, and have access to a scholar. But I think that if you insist enough and with more senior scholars, and what I've seen at least, that more senior scholars are more willing, and naturally they're more willing to speak to sisters and to give them their time in that regard. So taking advantage of more senior scholars. But again, trying, where there's a will, there's a way. So inshallah ta'ala, you'll find your way bid'nillahi ta'ala.
What is the most important piece of advice you would give to someone who is in a MSA leadership position?
be patient. Be mindful of ideological extremes. Don't take sides. Be brotherly to people that are religious or not religious, Salafi or Sufi, knowledgeable or not knowledgeable, bearded or not bearded, hijabed or not hijabed, etc., etc. You need to be an inviting personality. People can deal with you and they can vent to you, and that's my first piece of advice on patience. And the other half of patience is don't expect anything from your VP and your treasurer and your and the people that show up at the MSA meeting that you give assignments to make the flyer or to get the word out and blah blah blah. Expect nothing. When you expect nothing and they do 10% of what you asked, you'll be so grateful. So otherwise you will have a miserable couple of years. So yeah. No, I'm done. Yeah, thanks.
I'm a quote Imam Siraj. Islam is not a one-night stand. He said that in like one of his tapes in the 80s, and I thought it was awesome. Greatest quotes I've ever heard. But most of the time, it's like the advice that the Messenger ﷺ gave to Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu. Don't be like a man. كَانَ يَقُومُ اللَّيْلَ فَتَرَكَ. He used to pray Qiyam al-Layl and then he stopped. Sometimes we have a lot of zeal, and most of the time when we talk about people who were very active in their MSAs, they're people that did not transition into any role whatsoever, any productive role whatsoever. This is the reality in regards to their masajid, in regards to other Muslim youth groups. Their work did not continue. So it's not just something that's fun on campus. It's not. And a lot of MSAs are turning into nothing more than fraternities. I'm not dissing MSAs because MSAs are very necessary and they serve a very important role on campuses. But it can't just become a frat, where we just hang out and then after college I can talk about how great the MSA was. Islamic work is a lifelong cause, that you have to dedicate yourself to in some form, some capacity.
Yeah.
Going on with the MSA question, what about like specific events or topics that you feel would be like relevant in an MSA setting that you think?
What are some topics I think would be relevant?
College students in general. Because I think a lot of MSA, well, not only, but I mean, we just pick like random topics that we think would be relevant.
Yeah, we do. No, we've been doing gender relations for 20 years, man. We can't get over it. Seriously, yeah. Forever. There's that one, there's like...
And it still didn't work.
No. The people who love those programs are the people who are the problem. Seriously. But what I think we should have... we should use the MSA as a forum to put scholars on the hot seat. I don't think MSAs are the forum for speeches and talks and lectures, actually. I think they're a forum where you bring a scholar over and the guy says just openly, listen, this kid put me on the spot yesterday. I hope he's not here, but it was awesome. He just put me on the spot. What's wrong with dating? Why can't I do it? It doesn't make sense to me. Because you want me to go talk to my mom about this girl? What do you think? She's going to go crazy. That's not going to work. What do you want me to talk to her family? Their dad's going to shoot me. So what choice do I have? Like,
Louisiana.
yeah.
Especially from Louisiana.
Yeah, Louisiana's a terrible place. Okay, so
I agree.
You live in Texas,
So-
it's not much better.
oh, it's amazing. Texas is awesome. Don't mess with Texas. All right, so
You got the Mavs.
yeah, so where are the Knicks?
You grew up in New York supporting the Knicks. You grew up in New York
You
supporting
asked
the
for
Knicks.
it.
You grew up in New York supporting the Knicks.
Okay. So what was I saying?
We're the Rockets.
Putting people on the spot.
So what was I saying, guys? I was saying something.
Dating.
So you put me on the spot and he like talked to me for 25 minutes giving me these reasons, and I actually had to engage him, not give him a lecture, but actually listen to his arguments and respond. You guys have some really serious issues that aren't addressed in speeches. Hey. Oh, Aghna Sabah.
You finally decide to show up.
Secret session? This is ridiculous. I thought the point of these were they were supposed to be like little intimate private sessions.
Yeah, have some pens.
The Twitter on this one is super duper session.
Yeah, I'm sitting.
Super duper secret.
Sorry,
session
bro.
or something.
No, I'm serious.
Move forward.
By the way, Yasser Khali's waiting for us for dinner, but
Yeah, so it's like
it's amazing. It's 5 minutes.
I'm supposed to record something with Brother Musa. So we give him 5 minutes.
All right, so like,
You did a really important job watching that thing.
yeah, dude. The battery might die.
okay, so let me just finish this. Yeah, nobody else can. But what I was saying was, you guys have some serious issues that you don't get answers for. Honestly, in speeches are mostly generic, right? They'll talk about taqwa or this or that or this, the hadith of Iman Islam and Ihsan, stuff you've already heard before. You'll be like, that was amazing. Doesn't get you anywhere. You need answers for your particular questions. And the QA session is usually 5 minutes, and the lecture is 55 minutes. MSA is the forum where you bring imams over and you literally grill them on your issues. That's what it needs to be, because that's the forum for an interactive conversation. Lectures are already available on YouTube, guys. There's no need for you. You want to find a gender relations lecture? Probably there. Okay, rights of women in Islam? Come on, misconceptions about Islam? Get over it. We're done with that. Grow up. Go move on, and really make that a forum of interaction with scholars. If you have that opportunity, use it. So.
I would respectfully disagree. A little bit. Yeah, that's right. Speaking, from the perspective, Super Bowl champion. Your cowgirls could get nothing done. No offense, Nasser. I love you, man. It's not you. It's not you. It's your team. But
Chris Paul, who?
I actually like the Mavs, so I can't say anything. But anyway, what I would say is that, you know what, sometimes you have two extremes. Number one, you have the extreme of, let's have a discussion about gender relations, let's have a discussion about whether this is halal or haram, let's have a discussion about this or this and that. But most of the time, with people in our age, it's not an intellectual problem. Okay, and there's a balance that we have to have with tazkiyah, where there have to be talks about reviving the heart, there have to be talks about setting your standard as the Quran and the Sunnah, about being willing to be honest with yourself, about, some of the key principles in fiqh, principles in fiqh, understanding the basis of the framework of our deen, the framework of our Islamic jurisprudence. Always staying away from doubtful matters and these types of things. Because most of the time we're not interested, and usually when I get a question like, is it haram to do this, and is it haram to listen to music, and is it haram to go to this carnival with this girl and that kind, I'm like, if I give you an answer with all the dalil in the world, and with the most convincing argument in the world, are you going to follow? And most likely the answer is no. The answer is going to be like, oh man, oh well,
And the bigger issue with that is, you're gonna come across somebody else who's gonna give you a different answer.
Yeah, and you're gonna start fatwa shopping. You're gonna find the one that you like, the one that's most convenient. And by that time, I mean, subhanallah, you're really killing yourself spiritually. So I think that
don't you think that in a heart-to-heart conversation rather than a lecture would have far more effect when the scholar literally actually calls the problem out for what it is?
I think there's a balance, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, scholars, and unfortunately what we see in masajid today is we see this paradigm where we see, for example, that some scholars and some imams and some da'iyas are so irrelevant to society, in regards to societal issues, where they don't touch them at all, and all they talk about is iman. The iman and yaqeen thing without anything else. And then you've got the other side, which is so engulfed in trying to intellectually debate these issues. And just like you mentioned, for 20 years you've been having all these gender relations things, and it really hasn't solved the problem. You know, because people are not really interested in finding the correct answer. They're interested in finding the answer that they want to hear. So having, obviously, a heart-to-heart is more effective, but I think that, you know, this is the way that the revelation started for the first 13 years, you know, Mr. Quran guy. And, so, yeah. I disagree.
That's it?
That's all I got. You want to offer a rebuttal?
No. My rebuttal was last year at the ballroom.
Oh.
So,
Your refusal to accept a rematch.
Go ahead.
I still remember the score.
Limit our fatwa shopping, kind of. How do you recommend? I've heard a lot of people wisdom say that we should just follow like a scholar who we trust and that we have like somewhat of access to. Do you recommend that as a good resolution to avoid fatwa shopping?
Absolutely. That is the recourse. That is the recourse. We live in the age of information, and the effect that that's had on our deen is that we treat ilm as information. So just like if you don't find the information for something on one website, you go to another website. That's the way it works. So we're doing the same thing with our ilm as well. When the ilm has little to nothing to do with information. Very little to do with information. It's not about the information. It's about the experience of it, about how it enlightens you, how it guides you, how it molds you. That's the purpose of ilm. And that is primarily through being with the teacher, staying with the teacher, learning from the character of a teacher. And that's very, very important. So we shouldn't even be concerned with speakers. We need to be concerned with teachers. We need teachers is what we need. And we all need to become students. I tell everybody, like what I said earlier in the Q&A session we had today, and that works both ways. Oh, we can't find any good teachers. I can point out plenty of good teachers that will tell you they couldn't find good students. Because when Imam Umar Suleiman and Brother Noman Ali Khan came, everybody paid attention. And then when they went home back to their to a teacher, somebody that they have access to, right? Somebody that they don't live halfway across the country from. Somebody that they didn't just see in 3 sessions. Somebody they could literally sit with 4 days a week and they could study. All right? Then they didn't care, they didn't pay attention. There's nothing more disturbing than seeing when I see a good qualified imam or a teacher in a community and people are sitting there, even first of all there's not people attending his class or his lecture. Even when they are attending, they're not sitting there with a notebook and a pen and they're not taking notes. Act like a student, develop the mentality of a student. It's very, very, very important. That's the first thing. And then second issue, second part of the remedy of that is what type of knowledge are we going after and are we seeking? There's a hierarchy, there's a priority, a list of priorities in terms of what you seek knowledge about. It begins with the book of Allah, the Quran, and the life of the Messenger ﷺ. Not even so much as the text of hadith, but just seerah. We need seerah. We need the life of the Prophet. So first, firmly ground yourself in Quran and seerah, and the next step I would say would be the basic fiqh that you need to live your day-to-day life. But that's where that trusted teacher comes in. Like, how do I do this? How do I do that? You don't need to be concerned with what are the different madhahib on this? What are their evidences? What are their usul? What's the stronger opinion? In the brothers Q&A session, somebody asked me, what's the stronger opinion about this? I said, first thing, there is no such thing as a stronger opinion. There's either information or a lack thereof, but there is no such thing as a stronger opinion. Absolutely not. There are multiple practices of the Prophet ﷺ, and they all categorize as sunnah. Now, there is eventually something that's going to come along that is not right, but we'll never be able to make that distinction. You and I will never be able to tell, but that's wrong, because we're not qualified to do that. That's when we have to go to our teachers. And talking about that note of getting serious knowledge, you like to listen to speeches from Imam Umar Suleiman, Brother Noman, Ustad Norman, or even myself. The people that we learned from, you never heard their name ever before. Yeah. They have no YouTube videos. They have 0 hits on YouTube. They have no website. They ever think about that? And they were fountains of knowledge. Unbelievable people. Absolutely.
You know, I want to mention something that happened at last year's conference that subhanAllah really upset me. I'm going to mention it. We've got a rematch in 2 hours. But anyway, so, you know, something that really upset me, subhanAllah, I remember this session. So it was myself and it was Brother Wissam and it was Sheikh Muhammad Iqbal Nadwi. And Sheikh Muhammad Iqbal Nadwi, and I shared this with some of you, I was really upset that day. Sheikh Muhammad Iqbal Nadwi was in the middle of myself and Brother Wissam. And when I finished, people, when he got up, while he was speaking, while he was starting his speech, the room cleared out. And then whenever people realized that Brother Wissam's turn was coming, the room was filling up again. And I was like, look, subhanAllah, we're just, I mean, seriously, compared to these guys, this guy's a PhD from Al-Quran. I'm a joke. I'm not a scholar, I'm not even a student of knowledge compared to this person. Neither is Brother Wissam, neither is Brother Nu'man, and I know that he's, you know, he has no problem saying that. We are not scholars here. You know, we're trying to just at least, I mean, at least the goal that I see from whenever we speak is that, inshallah ta'ala, you would take your knowledge more seriously and you would go learn from real scholars. You know, like, you've got people like Dr. Salah, you've got people like Dr. Hatim al-Hajj. Some of you guys have had Dr. Hatim al-Hajj. We were having, you know, a conversation with someone. Dr. Hatim is a PhD in fiqh and a physician, a genius of a scholar. But because he speaks in monotone, his lectures are mostly empty. So are we interested in speakers or are we interested in scholarship? Okay, so we should be interested in scholarship. All right, this is just hype. All right, what's real, and I mean, I trust me. Whenever you go to some of these conferences, I remember once in Texas Dawah Convention, Dr. Salah Hassawi behind the closed doors was giving a halaqah of tazkiyah to the speakers. And you imagine that Sheikh Walid and you know the speakers that we listen to, Sheikh Yasir, everybody's sitting on the floor and he's sitting on a chair and giving a lecture. And that was such a powerful image for me, because if he's at a conference and he's speaking, he's not going to have but 5-6 people in the room. But if his students are speaking, because they're better speakers, they're going to have a packed room. So we have to, I mean, we have to really think about that. Are we really serious about scholarship or just being entertained and amused?
But one thing, this is a small session and this is a private session. I really appreciate Imam Omar being very candid and just giving it to y'all like it is. Because sometimes we need to hear it like it is. But I'll just add one last thing on top of that though, is nevertheless, all of you being here and whatever time you spent and whatever sessions you've sat in, it's still of benefit, mashallah. It's better than where you could have been. And we should never demean, we should never degrade any level of work. No, and this is serious. I know we all feel this way. Brother Numan has said this multiple times about like how sometimes going back to the conferences over and over again, like the MSA conferences, started developing like an empty feeling, because it was a sort of like the recycled feeling over and over again. So mashallah, you guys seem like you're serious students, and that's why we're talking to you like this. But don't ever make the mistake of degrading somebody else who's excited to be at the conference, because that's the first step for that person. Every little facet of operation, every little facet, or every little scene that we have going on in terms of Muslims and the Islamic scene, whether they be conferences or just the MSA get together or the halaqah or the class or the intensive and the seminar, all that stuff, it's all for different segments, different demographics of the community, and inshallah somebody's benefiting. You just have to make sure that you are constantly pushing and motivating yourself to go forward, inshallah, and grow past the limit. And that's why Imam Omar is trying to remind you guys that you're here at a conference. Now let's move past conference phase and get serious about learning, inshallah.
You just mentioned that you said you go for scholarships. I was wondering, you mentioned that you should go for scholarships as opposed to like this hyper speakers. What can we do to find scholarship? Where can we look, and what things can we take to actually develop that relationship with scholars and teachers that we can start learning? Cheers.
I got one. Learn Arabic. I don't care where. I don't care how. You'll have access to scholars.
Absolutely right.
Just take it seriously. If you want to head down that path, fulfill the prerequisite. Yep. The door opens up after the key. Yeah. You and then you.
If your MSA in Islamic Center is, I guess, unbalanced in views on Islam and is a bit more lenient towards certain practices, how should you go about to rebalance like the understanding of Islam in the community, because if, for example, there are lots of people who have more lenient views on Islam,
Yeah.
how do you go about bringing the balance back to like a more balanced approach?
You want to take this one?
I
I could take it if you like.
I don't want to because of what my response is.
Oh, yeah, I know. That's why I asked you.
Baseball bats.
Yeah. No, it's my my take on that is, and my take on that, and this is again, I don't mean to pick on specifically you. I know you're asking just honestly and sincerely. I think that a lot more humility is needed on our part. I mean, like how, you know, sometimes we have to just kind of check ourselves in terms of, we're not in the position to maybe necessarily say that they are doing it right, they are doing it wrong. My concern for young people is right now, just go be productive. Just go be productive. Just go do good stuff. Just get involved. Just do. Don't worry about like this is this way and that's that way and they're lenient and they're conservative and they're strict and we need to do this and we need to bring this and we need to bring that and we need to bring these type of speakers. We don't need to bring those type of speakers. You need guys really need to step away from this stuff. You know, you guys have so many advantages over my generation that grew up like in the 80s, right? You guys have so many more advantages. This is unbelievable. This would never happen when I was your age. This didn't happen. But at the same time, I feel like you guys are at such a huge disadvantage. Because I was oblivious to all this nonsense. They are that and we are this and they are like this and they are like that and that speaker is like this and that speaker. We were oblivious as that. We just cared about being Muslim. We just knew Allah and Rasul, Quran and Hadith. And that's all we did. We just tried to do good stuff. We tried to learn good stuff. We tried to talk about good stuff. And that was it. It was a very simple formula. Get back to the basics. Get back to something simple. And you know, as far as activities are concerned, focus your activities in two directions. Read, that's why I said, don't even focus on the text of the Hadith at this moment. Because you guys aren't ready for it. Read Seerah. Read Seerah, the experiences of the Prophet ﷺ. That's something that we'll just, that is what it is. And then Quran, basic Quranic understanding. Just understand, what is this surah talking about? What does this ayah refer to? Basic Quranic understanding, life of the Prophet, and then just focus on contributing to your community, your society. Keep it very basic and simple, inshallah.
I mean, just add on that, subhanAllah, it's a very beautiful poem from Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah. لسانك لا تذكر به عورة امرئ فكلك عورات للناس ألسن وعينك إن أبدت إليك معايبا فدعها وقل يا عين للناس أعين. With, you know, your tongue, do not use your tongue to mention the fault of another, because you are full of faults and other people have tongues too. And if your eye returns to you the fault of another person, then hold your eye back and say, oh eye, other people have eyes too. And people who waste their times in refutation and in talking about what other people, you know, are doing that's wrong, never get anything done. They're never productive. I've never seen a person, you know, in this country who's wasted his time refuting people, not as a scholar, not as a da'iyah, not as an Islamic activist, who actually got anything done. You know, instead of telling people what they're doing wrong, just do things right, and inshallah ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
There's a sister hand first before you talk here.
We'll give.
There's a hand here. Was it you? Yeah.
What you were talking about before about other speakers having like more knowledge.
You get through us, and we'll let you know. In other words, our job is to basically deliver a simple message, and hopefully transition people from a casual familiarity with Islam to a desire to want to learn at a deeper level. And there will come a point where talk by me, or you know, khutbah and things like that will not be enough. You'll need some more deeper, richer, you know, more thorough information. And it's at that point that you will begin to ask deeper questions. And when you ask the deeper questions, you'll necessarily find deeper scholarship. Right now, your questions aren't deep enough for you to even want to look for that resource. But you get to that point, and in any area of Islamic studies, like for example, many of you don't know who Imam Abdul Rauf Zaman is. He's one of my mentors, you know, in MCMC, New Jersey. Not the most amazing speaker in the world, but one of the most amazing scholars in this country. speaks 8 languages fluently. He speaks Latin. Ridiculous.
But so in
You
the
know,
meantime,
Michelle.
why do you guys like kind of like ridicule us for picking you guys if there's no one else to
Perspective.
choose from?
Perspective, because
It was Nahal.
it's my student.
That's fine.
Good guy.
Yeah, what you got? I love you too.
But it's perspective.
What are
It's
you gonna
perspective to stop you, prevent you from falling into that predicament of just personality worship, because that's detrimental, and also to kind of save people like Brother Noman. So honestly,
Because our generation fell into that. We idolized certain people, and then that was all of Islam for us. And then until we ran into a wall face first, then we realized, oh my God, there's more.
and there have been very, very
You know?
good qualified people along the way, because they got surrounded by enough people to start idolizing them, that it eventually
It got to
even
them.
skewed their it got to them. It got in their head. Speaking of YouTube recordings, I have to go record a session real quick, so I'm going to step out, inshallah. Yes.
Serious question. Brother Amana, can I take a picture with you?
I just invited to your wedding already.
He'll sing Hasbi Rabbi for you. And he'll autograph your shirt for you.
Get your name called like that.
Nahal, what are you doing?
All right.
Standing there. Nahal.
This is a bear. Hurry up. Just try to listen.
As much as the idea of trusted speakers and scholars trying to find somebody to follow, what's the criteria you use to decide who's worth studying?
Okay, loaded question. I'm going to qualify it in 2 parts. There are 2 areas of taking in Islam. There's a level of counsel. By counsel, I mean areas of benefit that are basically universal teachings. There, I'm a lot less. I discriminate a lot less. I'm willing to take from anybody when it comes to being good to parents, when it comes to managing your time better, when it comes to being regular in your salawat, the universals, right? I won't say what is the background of this person, where they graduate from, blah 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 blah. It's good advice. I'll take it. I'll look at what's being said first, way before I look at who's saying it. Okay. When it comes to life, altering types of decisions in my life. For example, I'm going to go to Hajj. I need to learn about the fiqh of Hajj. I'm about to purchase a house. I need to learn something about Islamic financing. I'm about to get married. I need to learn some very precise things about the fiqh of marriage, etc., etc. I have very pointed questions that have to do with my life. It's not just philosophical Islamic pursuit. It has to do practically with my life. Then I'll actually do research into people that specialize in these areas, that are that are appreciated by people I look up to, that are more knowledgeable than I, and everybody knows other people that are more knowledgeable than themselves, who can recommend experts in a certain area, right? So, and then I'll go ask them. And I'll be honest with you, for a lot of my fiqh questions, I just ask Abdul Nasser. He can't, he lives in the same town, so I'll just go to him and just say, hey, help me out.
We're going to go to that sister.
Yeah, she raised her hand a long time ago.
And
Yeah.
then,
I was before Zimmer, but okay.
Kind of going back to women want to learn more.
Yeah.
Attain more knowledge, especially for females. How do you I don't think I was satisfied with the answer enough. How do you go about approaching a scholar or somebody you're finding knowledge and able to grab enough knowledge for yourself that you can maybe even teach others, but have a way so that there can be a network, especially with sisters one-on-one that don't know really how. How do you do that?
One of my wishes is if thanks. Okay. You can say that. Okay. Well, you guys heard of Al-Huda Institute in Canada?
I was just thinking about that.
Dr. Farah Hashmi? You heard of Dr. Farah Hashmi? This lady has literally changed millions of lives by Allah's permission, conducting tafsir of the Quran, word by word, a complete root analysis of every word in the Quran from Fatiha to Nas in Urdu, out of Canada, right? And then some of her students started doing it in English. This is a network of literally hundreds of thousands of Muslim women. Hundreds of thousands of them. One of our teachers on campus, at the Bayna campus, is a graduate from her institute. She teaches Quranic root analysis for us. I'm not saying that institute in particular, but that culture of sister institutions and an independence from male scholarship needs to be developed. At the same time, I'm not denying that we can take advantage of male scholarship, but there's always going to be a social barrier. It's going to be there. And the real lasting solution to that is actually female teachers, female scholars, female institutions, female training programs. Right now, for example, we have at our campus, we have brothers and sisters on campus. And when we get to the conversational part of our curriculum, it's very hard because I'm a male teacher, and when you're teaching a conversation in a foreign language, you have to make small talk. You have to chit chat because you have to get people to converse. So we literally had to hire sister teachers because I'm not going to go chit chat with a sister. No matter how much I want to teach her, I'm not going to talk to her about what you have for lunch or whatever. And they're uncomfortable too. That's just how we are naturally as Muslims. We have a sense of haya, right? So we had to actually create a parallel program for sisters for the conversational component because it was a necessity, right? It became a necessity. But this is a transition we're going to have to make of literally an army of female teachers and scholars. And it's not going to come from outside. We have to take what we have and build on it. Yeah.
Wait. You spoke about the need to create Islamic institutions.
Yeah.
What about the need of regulation? Do you think there's a need for that in
I think regulation comes over time. It doesn't come first. These institutions are developing whether you like them or not.
Right.
And as they grow and mature, you're going to find cracks in them. And because right now we have individuals. We don't even have institutions. Then above that you have institutions. It's a higher level of organization. Then above that you have regulatory bodies. This is the natural order of things. When you try to put regulations before something that really can't be enforced, there's no structure in place. So the natural order will be institutions will come into being, they will mature, they will grow, and eventually they'll form networks, and then regulations will come into play. Like right now, if there was somebody that decides what foods are halal and haram, who's there to respect it? Whoever knows of that organization,
Right,
Yeah.
that's my point, because it's in this country we're never going to have regulation of Islamic institutions from the government, right?
Self-governance. We're going to have self-governance.
Then doesn't it come back to like whoever agrees with you is the only one who's going to allow self-governance?
No, I think as these mature organizations grow, we're going to learn. I think this country is the best place for us to learn coexistence, and for a best place for us to unify on what is completely unacceptable. And you'll find that the unacceptable things, the fringe things, are going to start withering out, whether you like it or not. I won't name names, but there are institutions that as they grew, they had to let go of their craziness. Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys want us to kind of go back to the basics, like learn Quran and like understand it.
Sure.
But from a Dawah perspective, in our universities, there's a lot of like in our times, there's a lot of questions about more complex subjects that we need to understand. So, how would you advise us on going about learning about those subjects?
You want to say something about that?
I mean, I would, and this was what Brother Norman said about bringing scholars and putting them on the hot seat in that regard. You do have to have, Islamic scholars addressing issues that require scholars addressing them. And one of the things, for example, the whole Sharia issue, which has been completely blown out of proportion. And it's not that we're going to go online and find an article that we like that addresses the issue in the way that would make it easiest for us to answer, but rather we're going to try to see where there is what Islamic scholars say about it. Going to the reputable, Muslim organizations and scholarly councils and those types of things, inviting those speakers, and this is, instead of gender relations, I think this is something that I found, alhamdulillah, very effective this year, inviting speakers to talk about Islamophobia, inviting speakers to answer those questions about Sharia and those types of things, rather than trying to answer them yourselves because you read one article that you liked, that addressed the issue in an apologetic way, so it didn't put you in such an awkward state. So putting imams and scholars and people that are qualified to do that in that situation, inviting them to your MSAs, regardless of whether, and subhanAllah, one of the things that really bothers me is regardless of whether you agree with some issues with them on jurisprudence or not, you disagree with them on some issues and those types of things, but at least you agree with them on those issues, the core issues, the issue that's at hand, it's very effective to bring those people to your universities, to your MSAs, and to do that, and to learn from them, you know, the meaning of those things. I mean, there is no, yes, you have to go back to basics, but there is no replacement for getting yourself educated also as to what these things mean. And there's a wealth of information about these topics on the internet.
You bring up a really heavy point. That's been something's bothering me for a long time.
Right.
The foundation of our belief is being challenged on campus. We're, you know, atheists, agnostics, Christians, Jews, you name it. They're compiling a wealth of alleged contradictions and you know, statements of barbarism, what have you, from Islam, and they're just shoving them in our face. Last year's ISNA convention, there was a guy outside who was handing out pamphlets that said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim on the cover, and when you open it, it was contradictions in the Quran, quoting Tabari, Qurtubi, Ibn Kathir rahimahumullah, and all these Mufassirun on one ayah, and it's a list of contradictions, and at the end of it, it calls people to Christianity. But it doesn't call to Christianity first. It shows people how much contradiction there is in the Quran, and then calls them to it, with a very academic format, right? So that challenge does exist. You know, the scary thing about this is that a good chunk of our speakers and scholars don't even know that challenge exists, because they're in the masjid, they're not on campus. And they don't go to the kafir website and find out what the mushrikun are saying. And their idea of what the kuffar say is basically what Allah told us they say back in Quraysh times. You know, وَيَقُولُونَ مَتَى هَذَا الْوَعْدُ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. That's all they know. They say, when is the time coming if you're truthful? That's all they know. They don't know Richard Dawkins. They don't even know, except for like here and there in passing, they don't know who Freud is. They don't know. They don't know what Darwin is. They have no idea. They don't know what positive and negative atheism are. They have no clue. You guys take these courses, you know this stuff. And even when they come and present Aqidah to you, a lot of times they'll be discussing issues in theology that existed 4, 5, 6 centuries ago, but the modern issues in theology, the challenges to theology now, the things that rattle your faith after you take an anthropology class, after you take an evolutionary biology class, after you take a couple of philosophy courses, modern philosophy courses, postmodernism courses, religion and society courses, the stuff that starts messing with your head, man, where are we going to find the answer? That's why we need people like Sheikh Yasir Qadi, the scholar and academic. You know, these people are a commodity. They're seriously a commodity, because the ulama of riwayah, the ulama of text, they're not necessarily equipped to deal with this stuff. And a lot of times we bring them to answer those questions and they're stumped. And when they're stumped, we feel like, well, Islam doesn't have an answer. Islam does. It's just that these people, that's not their job. They were trained for something entirely different. They were trained to serve a believing community. That's what their institution trained them to do. They were not trained to deal with intellectual onslaughts that are coming against Islam. That's not what their training was. You know?
Can I mention one more thing, if you don't mind, just really quick, inshallah ta'ala, also? You know, we have to understand what Brother Norman is talking about is a very serious issue, and we have to deal with it. And yes, we have to be able to produce our own academics, you know, from our community who can respond to these heavy loaded arguments. For the vast majority of people, though, on campus, and the vast majority of people that have Islamophobic tendencies, you have to understand that. You know, something that Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, and Sean Hannity, what do they all share in common? Anybody tell me? Other than being idiots. Not a single one of them has a college degree.
What?
I studied that. I was shocked. I know. Not a single one of them lasted in college for more than a year. So people are not going to them because, you know, they're professors in anthropology and professors in political science and they can offer their expertise, you know. No, they go to them because they tell them what they want to hear. So the first thing, and this is something that I found very effective, at least when answering, you know, questions on Islamophobia, is call to question the credibility of those who are attacking Islam and attacking Sharia and the media in that regard.
Okay.
And yeah, you're here. What's up?
We need to go have dinner.
All right, let's go eat.
Wait, now that you're back, I just have one question I want to ask.
Absolutely not.
Not just to you, I know it's all of you.
Okay, that makes it even more no.
In about a minute, how would you explain to an atheist why you believe in one God?
Wow. Yes.
I think you might as well take a seat.
I am illegally parked outside. Can we go?
Wait, no second.
No, that's your problem.
How would I explain to why would I explain to an atheist? I don't need to explain anything to anybody. He has to explain to me why he doesn't believe in God. I'm on this burden of proof.
No, this is
Yeah.
law school.
Sorry, it is law school. It's rhetoric. Prove to me God exists? No, you prove to me He doesn't. You're coming to me? I come to you.
And you're in the minority.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a deeper. We could talk about that outside.
But I think we should end here.
Can I just get one more? It's kind of
Look up Kevin McAbin.
Sure.
No, it's just.
This is a short question.
Yeah, no. If you could just comment on, like, a phenomenon that we've noticed, that like Islamic workers who get really involved in work or just other things, and they get like spiritually burned out.
Yeah.
That's something I've noticed. It's very, especially among like MSA and on campus.
Sure.
And a lot of stuff. Like, how do you prevent something like
Connection with the masjid.
And my teacher, I started giving khutbahs very early on, and he saw potential, and he himself would send me out for lectures and khutbahs and programs. And he told me, I mentioned this in the session earlier today about dawah, that he said the more you talk to people, you know, the more you're interacting and talking and working with the people, the more time you need to invest into talking to Allah. So the more you get active in your MSA, in your dawah, in your organization, in your work, make sure you are increasing your time in salah, in prayer, in dhikr, in recitation of Quran, alone time.
Go to Jummah an hour early.
And I'm not talking about the halaqah. Like Brother Noman's giving a tafsir class, so we're going to all go there and I'm going to count that as my Quran time. No. Alone Quran time. Alone. Spend time with Allah, like in that figurative sense. Private time with Allah. I'm just going to pray quietly. I'm going to take an hour and just recite Quran. That's very, very important.
Therapeutic. That's what it is.
And you know, subhanAllah, today that's what we were talking about in the intensive class, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed Surah Al-Muzammil after Surah Al-Mudaththir, that you need to have spiritual constants. It's not just a one-time thing, you had a spiritual birth, and then all of a sudden you go into da'wah and you start forgetting your spirituality. Talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and here's the other thing that I think happens when you get really big as an activist, when you start really getting important. إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ لَكَ أُذُنَانِ, what he said. Allah gave you 2 ears but only one tongue, so use them in a proper proportion. You have to have a scholar, you have to have someone you go to who counsels you, someone who talks down to you, and someone who teaches you and keeps that aspect of tarbiyah in your life. You never grow out of that. I don't care how big you get, you never grow out of that. And once you lose that, you start losing yourself without realizing it. It's the danger of it, subhanAllah.
So I think we're going to end here because...
I love YM.
Yeah, and go to YM halaqas and that'll get you in the Jannah, inshallah.
We have pens and stuff.
And booklets.
The entertainment session is starting now.